So I'm in the St Ermin's Hotel, built in 1899. It's the closest hotel in London that actually looks more like a theatre, because it was designed by a theatre designer, a man called John Briggs, also responsible for designing the interior of the Savoy Theatre, opened about 10 years before, the home of the D'Oyly Carte light opera starring Gilbert O'Sullivan. But what a fabulous interior this hotel has. Amazing. By the way, just down there is the secret entrance to the tunnel that stretches allegedly all the way to the Houses of Parliament for the MPs to scurry back to vote when they need to get into the lobbies. But just marvel at the wonderful detail of this amazing hotel that looks just like it's a Victorian theatre. So this is a $1 billion building, the headquarters of Bloomberg in London. It includes within it this amazing artwork here. It's called Forgotten Streams, and it's by the Spanish artist Cristina Iglesias. She also designed the doors of the Prado Museum in Madrid. Unfortunately, there's a nasty bit of rubbish here, which I should remove. But this really reflects the fact that there used to be, there still is in fact subterranean, a stream underneath this whole street here. Ancient Romans settled here back in 43 AD. The street's called Walbrook, and the ancient river that still runs underneath the ground here goes all the way down to the River Thames at the end of the street.
Mind the gap.
Okay, so that voice saying "mind the gap," that was actually the voice of an actor who recorded it sometime in the 60s, straight 70s. In 2002 or 12, his wife came down here because she used to love hearing his voice after he had died. Margaret. Unfortunately, they had changed the voice. It was no longer his. But luckily, after she spoke to London Underground, they combed through all their archives and managed to find one recording left of her husband saying "mind the gap." They put it back here so she continued to come down until she died to remember her husband, whose voice had been recorded here way back 30 or 40 years before, saying "mind the gap." It's the only platform in London where she can hear his voice, and it's been preserved for eternity. Hello, we're in St Paul's Cathedral at the tomb of Nelson, and I've just noticed I used to work in facilities management, running buildings, and I always look out for this one thing. So we've got the marvellous tomb here, and yet at the top of it, two of the lights are not working. So I found hidden artwork here in Oxford Street. Look at the ground here, can you see? The tiles have been given these dots on them that form an image of some kind of a street image. It stretches all the way down there, all the way up there. I can find zero reference to it anywhere on the internet. The artist's name is Brad Lockor, and I've messaged him, he's not replied. If anyone knows anything about it, please let me know. I'm really keen to find out. It might be a church, maybe, with a cupola on it, but it's designed to be seen almost from this sort of level. Anyway, it's amazing, and I'm looking as if I'm the only person who's ever noticed it. This is a memorial to political prisoners, political martyrs, in fact. 5 Scottish protesters supporting the ideals of the French Revolution, universal suffrage, democracy, freedom. They were all imprisoned, in fact transported to Australia. One escaped but died on his way back. And this memorial in Nunhead Cemetery is recognising the principles of parliamentary reform, the fearless energy that these 5 brave individuals have, who all suffered campaigning for political freedoms that we now all take for granted in the UK. Hello, Frankie. This is where my brother got married. It's the Chapel Royal of St James's Palace. No photographs are allowed, and we're not allowed to go in as members of the public. It's private. I've just noticed this amazing stained glass window in it. Now, I've taken a photograph and reversed it to make out what it says. At first I thought it was the royal family tree, but now, having looked at the text, although the Queen is right in the middle of it, she's surrounded by all the branches of the different countries cemeteries that make up or have made up the Commonwealth. So this is a sort of Commonwealth memorial window inside St James's Palace, which was founded by Henry VIII as a present for his second wife, Anne Boleyn. So I've just taken my wife up the Oxo Tower, and now we are looking at the amazing views of London. In the distance we have St Paul's Cathedral, so much, the City of London, we've got Royal Courts of Justice over there, we've got the Post Office Tower over there, which was incidentally as tall as old St Paul's Cathedral used to be.
Just watching David
right in the
TikTok
distance
over the
we have, that's the famous hotel, the Savoy Hotel, and the river view here is absolutely fantastic up the Oxo Tower. This is an amazing grave in Nunhead Cemetery in southeast London. John Davis, an American Civil War veteran, has been buried here, and a few years ago they put his grave up. He was born in the UK, he went to America, volunteered for the Unionist side of the Civil War, was blown up in a ship which he survived, helped find John Wilkes Booth after the assassination of Lincoln apparently, became a prospector in Australia, came back to the UK, was a womanizer, alcoholic, then went on a religious conversion, became a missionary, a preacher. He founded the UK branch of the American Civil War Survivors Society, and then sadly died in 1917, and here he is. What an incredible history behind this side-lined grave in the corner of Nunhead Cemetery. And I'm so happy that I found it. So I know nothing about trainers, but I'm in Sotheby's, and they have an exhibition of what I believe are rare trainers that are due to be sold soon. The gallery's about to shut, so I have to leave, but I'm just taking a quick video. If anyone knows anything about whether these are valuable or not, which I assume they are because they're in Sotheby's, please let me know. And come back tomorrow. In particular, which one is the most valuable? The first ever head put on a spike at the end of London Bridge belonged to this man, William Wallace, who was decapitated by King Edward I after his trial in the Palace of Westminster, as portrayed in this 1851 painting. Now, the Guildhall Art Gallery used to have a statue of Margaret Thatcher just in this corner of the room. In 2002, her statue was also decapitated and the head knocked off by a protester, a theatre director called Paul Kelleher, who came into the gallery with a cricket bat stuck down his trousers to try and knock it off. So it's ironic that we have one hero decapitated, to the Scots at least, and then a slightly more divisive figure, maybe, who also ended up having her image decapitated here centuries later. This is a Nazi forgery from the Second World War designed to destroy the British economy. My name is David, I'm the London Spy, and this is one of the things that I show people on my tours of London, especially at the Bank of England. So the Nazis recruited, or forced rather, significantly gifted forgers from amongst the Jewish communities of various concentration camps, including Auschwitz. They wanted to create fake notes to be dropped and to overwhelm with additional money supply the British economy. These notes are amongst the most perfect ever forged of the old British notes, and I was very lucky enough to find this in a note shop in London who guaranteed its fake authenticity for me. The project was called Operation Bernhard, and you can Google it on Wikipedia, so I won't bore you with the full details there, which you can find, but just to say this is a sample of the sort of things that I love to show people, illustrating London history by objects when I'm doing my tours of London, which I hope to see you on one of them at one point. Anyway, Operation Bernhard, fake Nazi money. It's amazing what you find walking down the street in Peckham. Look at this, for example. This is an artwork contained in a house from an artist, John Latham. It's actually called Flat Time House, and this is two books that have been bound into each other, stuck into the house itself, called How the Universe, Voice is Still Unheard. I can't really make it out. Anyway, It's just down the road from where I live. The artist died in 2006, John Nathan. The book has been disbound on this side for some reason. And anyway, it's still a conceptual art. It's now an art gallery here. And I love books, so this is a fitting tribute to anyone who loves books. It's called Flat Time Ho or Flat Time House. I'm in the treasures room of the British Library. Again, virtually empty on Bank Holiday Monday. But what I'm going to show you is one of the most important books in the world and the earliest recorded copy of the New Testament. This is the Codex Sinaiticus from the middle of the 4th century, named after Mount Sinai, where it was found. This scale model shows the investiture of Queen Victoria in Westminster Abbey, but the reality was very different from what's presented here. So I think I've died and gone to heaven. I'm in the first books exhibition at the Saatchi Gallery. The theme is banned books, but something has just taken my attention, which is this. This is the first edition of a book by John Boleyn, explaining the way that he actually worked out how hieroglyphs meant anything, based on obviously the Rosetta Stone in the British Museum. There's a bit of information about it here. A snip at £54,000. So I think I've died and gone to heaven part 2. Look at this. This is allegedly within a year of her coronation in 1558. This is the earliest depiction of the newly crowned Queen Elizabeth I. A snip at merely £25,000. Sadly, I don't have the loose change rattling around in my pocket, but I would love to have this on my wall. This is I Think I've Died and Gone to Heaven Part 3. Right, this is a book by the rudest and most disgusting writer of the 19th century. It was Minor Algernon Charles Swinburne. He was into necrophilia, Satanism, worship, and all sorts of bizarre practices. This book is a beautiful edition, first edition of his collected works. It's on sale at the first book, and this is the description of it. And it says, sadomasochism, necrophilia, lesbianism, and anti-theism. A snip at £1,600. By the way, the binding is by this amazing binders called Zehnsdorf. Look at this. The rare and banned Anarchist Cookbook from 1971, first edition. Nearly £2,500, which for any anarchist might be against the law. Of course, literally I should probably just try and smash the cupboard and take it away in anarchist style, but I'm not going to do that. So the famous quote, "The spectre is haunting Europe." In fact, in the very first edition of the book printed in English, it was quoted as, "A frightful hobgoblin stalks through Europe." Which doesn't quite have the same ring to it, does it? So I think I've died and gone to heaven part 5 or 6, I'm not sure. So what we have here, autograph letter by Beethoven himself, also by Tchaikovsky, a signed photograph for his fans of Vladimir Ilyich Lenin, also Tolstoy, Francis Bacon, 1619, Turner, the artist, Toulouse-Lautrec, Leibniz, a famous philosopher, and Florence Nightingale. So the letters from her here too. And this is just one of incredible treasures that I can't afford in this gallery. So this is I Think I've Died and Gone to Heaven Part 6. Right, so look at this. This is Peter Harrington, by the way, which is a very nice bookseller, that very nice, friendly people. Right, look at this. The Catcher in the Rye, one of the most important books of the mid-20th century. Actually signed, incredibly rare. This is like a unicorn of books by J.D. Salinger himself, what's called an association copy. Almost perfect condition. And it's on sale for a mere £225,000. I have that sort of loose change in my pocket, but I'd much rather spend it on clothing and food. Okay, this is I Think I've Died and Gone to Heaven Part 7 or 8. Right, look at this. This is the first draft of James Bond of the Secret Services, which turned out to be on Her Majesty's Secret Service, I think. From Usher with Love, Goldfinger, Casino Royale, and other films. A snip at this much money. Right, I think I've died and gone to heaven, part 9. This is Peter Harrington, Adrian Harrington, and this is a collection of James Bond first editions. An amazing set of work here. It gets more and more, and there you go. Okay, yeah, I think I've died and gone to heaven, part 10, possibly. Right, if you're into the Beatles, into John Lennon, this is a genuine drawing by John Lennon for his first book in his own right. There's the book, a snip at £25,000. So in I Think I've Died and Gone to Heaven, part 11 from this amazing book fair, we have here a first edition of Ulysses, or Ulysses, depending on which country and which version of the English language you speak, by James Joyce from 1922. A snip again at £47,000, one of the most important books ever printed in the 20th century, and I just love it. Okay, I think I've died and gone to heaven, part 12. Same place, Jonkers. Look at this. This is not the first, not the second, but the third folio of Shakespeare, and it is again in this wonderful place, and it is again in this wonderful press. In I Have Died and Gone to Heaven, part 13, we have here, this is the sign of Aldus Manutius. Aldus, as you can see here, and this is his family. He died, I think, 1516. This is, well, look at this. This coin here, which I'm going to place not on the book but next to it, it shows also the sign of a dolphin and anchor. That's because this is the original coin of the Emperor Titus, which was used by Aldus Manutius to create his famous symbol, first used, I think, in April 1502, I believe. In edition number 15, I think, of I Think I've Died and Gone to Heaven. This is another book I've just found here. If you're ever interested in the history of foolishness, this is an amazing book called Extraordinarily Popular Delusions, Charles Mackay. Amongst other things, it goes into tulip mania, and as my colleague has just told me, into the 1720 South Sea bubble. It's still completely relevant nowadays into, what's the word, irrational decisions that we as humanity make. And what a fantastic book it is, and I wish I could afford it. So in Only Fools and Horses, they got their millions from selling a watch that had been made by this man, John Harrison, the inventor of the watch which solved the longitude problem. And this is his announcement of his discovery, explaining that he cracked the secret which would allow true navigation across the world. And it's on sale for £80,000, which is massively less than what one of his chronometers would cost. So the very, very first publication ever made by Charles Darwin, 1835, several years before The Origin of Species, but it includes information about his trip in the Beagle. And as you can see, it's on sale for a mere £380,000. It must be incredibly rare and valuable, and he was one of the greatest geniuses in the history of the world. So I think I've died and gone to heaven, part 14, maybe. So this book, I read, therefore I am, I might say, but as you see, this is the very first edition of Descartes' book, in which he first came up with the suggestion, je pense, donc, je suis, whatever it means. I don't know exactly what the French is, just in English. Anyway, it was in this book, a snip at £250,000. So we've got a runaway horse, baby screaming, woman dismayed, the driver unable to control it, and luckily we have a policeman here who's able to save the day and stop the horse from running away and killing everybody. Why is it here, however? We are at a place called Peel House, which is a building that was named after Sir Robert Peel, who created the Met Police in 1829, after whose name both the Peelers and Bobbies was created. This house became more infamous recently, however, because the Candy brothers, the famous developers, in order to get permission to build a huge block in somewhere along Park Lane, they claimed that this was a social housing development as part of that complex in Park Lane. It's nowhere near it. It's about 2 miles away in Pimlico. It is social housing, however, but I really think that they're stretching the point of claiming it's connected to their luxury developments in Park Lane. So today is the very last day that you are able to come to the Guildhall Art Gallery and see this amazing treasure that's going to be put back in storage for several years now, sadly. Can you guess what this is? Here's the answer. It is Magna Carta, probably the most important constitutional document in the history of the world, at least of England. Originally signed in 1215 by King John at Runaway, it was immediately cancelled and made void by the Pope. This version dates from 1297 from King Edward I, and it is probably the most important version of it because it's the one that actually was written into constitutional law and became valid. It's in Latin. As you can see here, it's got the word London on it down here as well. This is London's copy. And it is absolutely incredible. Okay, I'm going to show the signs for it now so you can pause and read these yourselves to work out more information. Sign 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you like your humour dark, sick, twisted, I love this place. Drum Labs, postcard art. This is one of my favourites. Less said about that, the better. Yeah, slightly dated, but still shredded. I think this is my favourite one of all. So I'm in the historic Guildhall, walls of which date back to the early 15th century. I'm here for the sheriff's ball. These are the sheriffs, and this is me. And I'm going to be performing not as a tour guide today, but as a magician. I'm not going to put any magic up on TikTok, however, because everyone tries to say how it's done, which isn't fair. Okay, speak later. The man who would be king, but not for long, and our Queen Elizabeth. I think they're both here. This is a Thanksgiving service from St Paul's Cathedral in 1935, showing King George V. He was to die very shortly after this, and Edward VIII would become king, but he abdicated very shortly afterwards in favour of what I think is his brother here, George VI. And we have here, I think quite possibly, a very early picture of Queen Elizabeth II herself. She would have been 9, I think, at this painting, and this is her mother, the Queen Mother. When this painting was made in 1935, people had no idea what was going to happen in probably just less than a year after this event. Momentous historical changes. This is the saint who was barbecued to death by orders of the Emperor, St Lawrence. And basically what happened is he's the patron saint of comedians. The reason being that the Emperor at the time, Valerian, I believe, said, "Bring me the wealth of the church," meaning obviously the goblets, gold, chalices, etc. Being a good Christian, however, Lawrence collected together a load of poor people, beggars, people with disabilities, etc., and told the Emperor that these indeed were the true wealth of the church. That sort of joke got him into hot water, as it were, or hot metal. He was punished by being griddled to death, and this is where he became the patron saint of comedians, because during his hour of execution, halfway through his ordeal, he turned to his persecutors and said, "This side is done, please turn me over." And that's how he was executed and how he became the patron saint of comedians. This is the Royal Exchange in London, coming out of it in the beautiful sunset, perfectly caught by the statue of the World War I war dead. We have the paparazzi dogs here, celebrating the fame of people coming in and out of the building. The sun is now just hiding behind this World War I memorial. I've discovered something quite interesting about this memorial, by the way. If you look very closely, it lists all the different battalions, including this one, the 28th Battalion, which were known as the Artists' Rifles. They were founded in late Victorian times by, I believe, the artist Frederick Leighton. But after the First World War, they were disbanded, and their name was then reused, recycled, whatever it was. I think after the Second World War. Can anyone guess what the 28th Battalion, the Artists' Rifles, went on to become? They became part of the SAS, the Secret Air Service. So I'm not sure whether the SAS themselves are pretty happy with being known as a bunch of artists, but there you go, and here is the brilliant Royal Exchange. Hey, it's David Harry here, the London Spy. I'm on my daily run. I've just noticed in leafy Dulwich Village where Boris Johnson and Carrie Johnson are about to move shortly, or thereabouts. There's this sign here, there used to be a village, stops here. It is a sport to a fool to do mischief to thine own. Wickedness shall correct thee. This may well have been quoted to Mr. Johnson by his cabinet on that fateful day in July this year when he decided to resign. Right, so this is one of the most extraordinary buildings in the City of London. From this side, it's clearly a sort of brutalist concrete post-war 50s monster. By the way, this is my bike, yes, and I have noticed the sign, but I'll be very quick. So we passed this brutalism. Basil Spence, I believe, was the architect here, and it's the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England and Wales, ICAEW. But then if we go around the corner, suddenly, what on earth happens to the brutalism? It becomes a late Victorian building, erecte something or other. Anyway, and it is, on this side, a very standard classical late Victorian building. So it's got a real schizophrenic approach towards its architecture. You've got industry, commerce, all sorts of friezes here representing endeavour and all the arts and crafts and work like that. But there we go, 1930. This section of it was built, but actually it's in two stages, and the bit around the corner was built quite a bit earlier than that. But I just love the way. And we've got India and the colonies, we've got shipping, we've got railways, whoops, all about the rubbish there. And on the front, we've got the much wider section of it, which, by the way, 1870, this was where the Institute was founded. So the front of the building, we've got a much, much earlier late Victorian structure, mining, agriculture, manufacturing, etc., etc. Anyway, I just absolutely love the way that they've turned one building effectively into two, showing the history of early and 20th century and late 19th century architecture. This is Maggie in Peckham.
And here we go. If I lift her up, she'll lift her wings up.
Good heavens.
Right. So yeah, her job is to... The building on the other side over there is quite new.
Yeah.
We've been coming here for a year. Her presence alone stops pigeons nesting on that roof. So...
what type of bird prey?
It's a Harris hawk.
Right.
She's 3 years old, from South America. In the wild, she would only live for 10 years, but in captivity, they live for up to 25. She only flies for food, so if I haven't got any food, she's not coming back today, which is why we've got a little transmitter there.
Right.
And although she's here to frighten the pigeons, she wouldn't attack them, but they don't know that. They really do feel scared. So they can see for miles, they know she's here.
Okay, I can't see any pigeons around, I have to say.
They know she's here. They know she's here. When we got here, there's quite a few over there. There's one over there now. But they all know she's here.
Fantastic.
So
what do you feed her? What have you got in your pocket?
She will eat a hawk. She will eat chicks.
Mm-hmm.
She would eat rodents, or she'd eat anything that's like meat, carnivorous. But yeah, we just feed them on chicks. That's what she's used to. So we have to be very careful that we don't overfeed her. If I do that today, I won't get her back.
Oh, wow.
So
that's brilliant. So she's working for the private company that owns the block of buildings over there.
Yeah, and as you can see, their windows are sparkling clean.
Yep.
And that's because we've been coming here for the last year, and in that time the pigeons refused to nest on that roof because we go around the whole building. We go around the other side as well. And
during nesting time, is it just like
all year
over
round? All year round. All year round.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much indeed.
You're welcome.
Cheers. And what's the name of the company you work for?
Nature's Way.
Nature's Way.
Yep.
Brilliant.
Yep.
Thank you so much. Right, so if you want to have your hair cut, sometimes you find surprising things. This is in the middle of the city of London. Nicholson and Griffin go downstairs here. Right, you will not believe what's down inside the basement of this hairdresser's. Okay, there's a slight clue just around the corner here as to what we're going to find. Oh no, it's gone. Used to be a little statue here. Right, walk through here. You can see at the end of here, there's a dark, oh no, that's the statue, they've moved it. Right, I have to turn the light on to see it. This is a section of the largest basilica and forum north of the Alps in the Roman Empire. And it's all that's left of a building site that used to stretch as far as big as Trafalgar Square is now. And you can pause to read it, but essentially this is information about it. Pause here, and pause here. And it was the centre for business and markets in Roman London. And it was formed in about AD 70, rebuilt between 90 and 120. A huge area, and this is all that survives of the Roman Forum. A funny thing happened on the way to the Forum. I had to go via the hairdressers. Extraordinary buildings in London, in my opinion. This is Leather Lane and Hatton Garden. Let's look at Waterhouse Square. Okay, so this was built by Sir Alfred Waterhouse, very famous Victorian architect. It's a huge area built for the Prudential Insurance Company. I'm going to wide screen this now, just look at this. Absolutely incredible. I love the way that the sunlight plays on the sort of terracotta style view here. Waterhouse Square. It's now run by WeWork operate here, and a company called something Gain, some kind of a company looking at margins on the marketplace. There's someone's nice dog here. Okay, Gain Theory. Look at this. It goes all the way right through here. This amazing double courtyard. And let's spin around again. Looking at this lovely attention to detail, wonderful brickwork here. Walking through here. Now there's even a connection here to Charles Dickens. If we look around the corner here and up here, we shall see that he lived here. Doesn't say when, just gives his birth and death dates, but there we go, Dickens connection here. Once again, another wonderful panoramic view of the amazing building here, Prudential Buildings, and we come through to the end of the street and we come out in Holborn. So as I said, this is Alfred Waterhouse, very famous architect. His family were also connected to people like Price Waterhouse Coopers. A brother, I think, was an accountant who created them. I think Mr. Waterhouse designed the Victoria and Albert Museum as well. But this is the symbol, I think, of the Prudential Insurance Company. Coming out into Holborn now. And City Heritage Award. What a fantastic building. This is the Steel Monster Home, the largest bed in London. It's larger even than Old Tom in St Paul's Cathedral, although Old Tom is slightly heavier. And it's in a Catholic church. Built in 1862, the bell was in a few hundred yards of St Paul's. Steel is louder than iron, so it's much louder ring apparently, and it was really following the emancipation of Catholic religious observation that the church was allowed to be built here at all, sort of crammed in between the streets here in Clerkenwell, and here it is, the Steel Monster. Unfortunately, the pelicans. It's fantastic to see just how big they are. A bit scary, to be honest. I don't like their red eyes very much. They're snorting away. And these pelicans were were a gift to King Charles II from the Russian government in the 1660s. Look at their amazing beaks. Oh, their amazing beaks. Gosh, they're a bit scary, aren't they? How many of them are? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, looking at the marvellous statue of Queen Victoria here in front of Buckingham Palace. If you look really closely at Queen Victoria's nose, you might be able to see that it doesn't quite have the same colour as the rest of the sculpture, and there's a thin line around it as well. That's because a while ago some workers were working on the sculpture, and one of them dropped a heavy object, maybe a hammer, that smashed off the Queen's nose. People do say she looks a little bit like former Prime Minister Harold Wilson, in fact. However, they've attempted to repair the nose, but for some reason they've never quite been able to match the colour exactly. And you can see that thin line as well, which I'd like to scamper up there with a bit of polyfiller and try and fix that too. But anyway, that's why the Queen's nose is not the original, and why it doesn't quite look the same. I'm David Harry, I am the London Spy. This is London. And please follow me if you like the videos, click on the links to follow my TikTok, and come and see me at one of my tours.